alone, black people alone cannot change institutions or undo systemic racism. We need to partner with allies, we need to partner with leadership, build on that social capital and optimize it in our mission to bring about change in a sustainable way. And finally, think visionary, think 3 generations. When you are no longer in that space, in that organization, in that institution, the work should continue even better than when it was.
Are being undermined, and not only by white supremacy. Many black people are also undermined by people who are diverse racialized. I run a private practice, I see it. In the workplaces I'm part of, I see it. People talk about it, but no one wants to come and publicly speak about it. We do need to start conducting research. It's called discrimination. And we see it in the workplace, we see it at the university campuses, we see it in conversations.
Finance, money. So we look at 2 main areas. One is how do we get capital to our entrepreneurs so they can invest in the ideas that they want and build successful businesses. And the other one is how do we give them adequate training such that this capital that they get as loans or grants or whatever form can best produce the results that they want. So in the interest of time, I'm going to pick some few ideas that pop up from those one topics. The first one is supporting our local organizations to be able to administer some of the funding programs that the government is doing. So that is very important one because these organizations are in the community, they know who needs the money, they know how the money is being spent and how to make the most out of it. So that's one of the ideas that came up. We also have training programs that will bring out conferences, symposiums, workshops, and those kinds of stuff for the training side. We also have situations where when entrepreneurs need networking opportunities, they need training on how to use the different resources and tools in the community. The other one that is also very, very crucial is moving away from credit score-centric approach to funding or to lending. If you go to a bank, you come down to if the credit score 900 or 850 or something, you want to go away from how your social capital, how well known are you in the community, how respectful are you in the community, how trustworthy are you in the community, so that we know you are responsible and you pay the loan. So we're moving away from those kinds of mindset of the colonial mindset of you only have to be to have a certain credit score to be loan money. While our community grows, like some of the people at the table actually like BCW as a non-profit working with women who are in business, they can administer some of this funding. They know which women are responsible, who is taking their businesses serious. So all those stuff are very, very important and hopefully I captured everything in.
Nationally, for all racialized persons, it is in the single digit. This is some of the data. It's a national, less so at the provincial level. So clearly there's work to be done. There are all kinds of professionals, there are black PhDs, black lawyers, so a lot of them very prominent in private practice and that could be appointed. So the process for those appointments need to be made more transparent so that you have more diversity on the bench, so you have more racialized individuals appointed to those positions. Now, with respect to the correction services, I think again, that gets to be focused on only when something has gone wrong. At the federal
we do teach. So within our curriculum, if you are a recruit, you are not only going to be learning about communication, you're going to be learning about your presence. You're going to learn about what your uniform symbolizes to people. Furthermore, we have specific programs within for those recruits on adverse childhood experiences, on historical trauma, on historical indigenous trauma, and historical LGBTQ trauma, understanding why there is a historical rift between the police and respective communities. Then we also have members from those communities, we call them community conversations, that come to speak to our recruits and connect with them on a personal personal basis. So that's for that first 6 months of training. While they're doing that, we created something called the experiential learning shifts.
Alberta since the 1850s, right? And so that framing needs to be challenged, because I think it's important for us to assert ourselves and assert the fact that we are a people, along with indigenous people, without categorizing, the people of this land. And the question of the experience of black people in terms of employment in the Canadian context is a question that goes back to that 400-year experience. We first come here as enslaved people. We come here to work as enslaved people. But we also come here to claim ground and territory in the 1700s, and it establishes that we're dealing with a structural problem that is responsible for the socioeconomic status of black people being solid. There's no way people would have been in place for 400 years and still experience the level of declining socioeconomic status that we do, unless there's something fundamentally wrong with the society that we deal with. So, just to say that a series of the papers we've published over the last 15 to 20 years, and I published a book on this, look at sort of mapping the experience of black racialized populations in the labor market. It is the case that the overall majority of us actually earn our livelihood from the labor market as workers. We really start to hear people using popularly black and racialized populations as a category, starting that period when there is permission given to identifying blackness as a very particular experience, right? Which is really important, because for many years we argued for the disaggregation of data, right? And we just would not get traction, right? And yet we needed to understand the extent to which racialization particularly penalizes black people because of their experience. And we couldn't really, we would collect the data, but it was not as valid as we probably need. So levels of house ownership in the country. I wouldn't include indigenous people. They probably have a lower level, but we also have First Nations, and maybe that might distort that. But for racialized people and non-racialized people, we have the lowest level of home ownership, and that is a critical piece of building intergenerational wealth, right? We have lagged behind in terms of income attainment consistently. When you look at the income deciles, we always fall below the 50%, right? We're below 50% when you look at average incomes. 60% of the racial.
So if you look at the government, I talked about the initiatives both from the federal government and the provincial government. How many blacks were at that table when those initiatives were actually identified as going to satisfy the black community? Dr. Glabas just articulated a lot of challenges. If he was at that table, would we have ended up with the initiatives we have? If I look at the federal government, how many blacks are in cabinet? If I look at the provincial government, how many blacks are in cabinet? Even when we go to the deputy ministers, I think DMO for Dick is the only one.
Nationally, for all racialized persons, it is in the single digit. This is some of the data. It's a national, less so at the provincial level. So clearly there's work to be done. There are all kinds of professionals, there are black PhDs, black lawyers, so a lot of them very prominent in private practice and that could be appointed. So the process for those appointments need to be made more transparent so that you have more diversity on the bench, so you have more racialized individuals appointed to those positions. Now, With respect to the correction services, I think again, that gets to be focused on only when something has gone wrong. At the federal
we do teach. So within our curriculum, if you are a recruit, you are not only going to be learning about communication, you're going to be learning about your presence. You're going to learn about what your uniform symbolizes to people. Furthermore, we have specific programs within for those recruits on adverse childhood experiences, on historical trauma, on historical Indigenous trauma, and historical LGBTQ trauma, understanding why there is a historical rift between the police and respective communities. Then we also have members from those communities, we call them community conversations, that come to speak to our recruits and connect with them on a personal basis. So that's for that first 6 months of training. While they're doing that, we created something called the experiential learning shifts.